My story begins 25 years ago when I went to a Northern California animal shelter to get a rabbit, and I came home with a dog. Now, most people choose their pets. Rocky, I am still sure he chose me. You see, when I didn't see any rabbit I liked, I just like, all right, I'm just gonna go check out the doggos, went to walk past the dog cages. And sure, all the dogs were like running around, barking, growling, being complete nuisances, basically confirming why I didn't think I wanted to get a dog. Until I walked past this one cage where there was this black dog with white and tan markings just sitting, staring, silent, with these human eyes, like he knew something already that I didn't. And I got curious, and I called over the manager. I'm like, can I meet this dog? Still no intention of getting one, just wanted to meet this dog that was so different than all the others. And the manager did something I didn't expect. He took the dog out of his cage and he just put him in my arms. And that was it. He didn't whine, he didn't struggle, he just clung to me. And I turned and I said, yeah, this dog's coming home with me. It was within seconds. And so I knew he was lovable. What I didn't know about Rocky at the time was that he was an Australian cattle dog mix. And if you don't know anything about the breed, they're very strong, smart, loyal, resilient. And I guess if you have enough of all those qualities, apparently are the reincarnation of Houdini. Because this dog, his favorite game was trying to play escape. And I'm gonna tell you right now, if I told you all the stories about this dog, we would be here clear into next month. So I'm gonna limit it to 3. Round 1, apartment doors. So shortly after I got him, I was living in an apartment, and I came home one day, and he was outside of my unit just milling around in the hall. And that's really weird when I certainly remembered locking him inside before I left. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, how did he get out here? And I'm like, the only explanation is he somehow opened the door. So I tested it, and I put him back inside, and sure enough, within 10 seconds, he was out in the hallway with me. Now, I will tell you, we had a lever door handle, which I will say a dog on his hind legs could press down on a handle. That actually does make sense to me. What didn't quite make sense to me is that he would have to press down on the handle to unlock the door, hold it down, pull it open, and then run out before the door closed on him. And he did this within seconds. It was not hard for him. So I solved this by doing 3 things. 1, when I left, I started sending him to daycare a lot more often. 2, I got a crate, and when it wasn't an option for daycare, I put him in the crate. And 3, I moved. And I got a place with, one of those turning door handles where I'm like, okay, he probably can't turn that knob. Well, one day I'm at work, and my apartment manager calls me, and she goes, Ravi, you can't have your dog running around our property without a leash on. And I'm like, well, I would never do that. Anytime I take him on a walk, I put him on a leash. Like, that's crazy. Who would do that? And she goes to me, well, why did I just chase him around the property right now then? And now, to this day, I am not sure why she started with the leash thing, because she was 100% burying the lead there. The bigger thing was, why was he running the property without me, right? But that's what was happening. And so I was talking to her, and she told me that, sure enough, she saw him around the property, and she tried to corner him, and he led her on this wild goose chase, where he led her all the way back to my unit, opened the door, and then actually slammed the door in her face. And thankfully, she had a sense of humor about this. But then she told me something even more startling, that wasn't the first time this had happened. That other people had told her that they had seen a black dog around the property. This was just the first time that she saw him, so it was the first time she knew it was my dog that they were talking about. And now, okay, I have to tell you, a lot of things I realized in that moment. There was times I would come home from work and he would be out of his crate. And I 100% rationalized that by user error. I didn't close it properly, right? No. He was getting out of the crate, somehow turning that doorknob, getting out, and going on these joy jaunts around the property. And the craziest part of all of that, I know that's all crazy, the craziest part of all of that, he would then come home before I did, so I was none the wiser. So, yeah, apartment doors, let's score that one for Rocky. Round two, crates. All right, so definitely apartment doors, could get out of those. Now I'm like, okay, he can get out of crates. Wasn't a problem, I kind of stopped putting him in them. And it didn't become an issue until I decided to move from Northern California back to the East Coast. Now, I had a convertible. I did not want to drive that across country. I actually didn't want it anymore. My plan was to sell it and to fly across the country. The thing is, if you fly across the country with a dog, you got to put him in a crate and they got to sit in the cargo hold for a cross-country flight. And I'm like, oh boy, that's going to be a challenge. So I spent more time than I would like to admit Googling crates dogs can't escape from. I bought 6 different crates. He escaped from every single one. The last one I thought was a winner because it didn't even have a door. It was a collapsible crate that you built and then put the dog in and then closed it from the top. You know what he did? He figured out how to collapse the crate from the inside so it collapsed on top of him and then he would just wriggle himself out. I told the vet this, and they were like, well, why don't you just zip tie the crate together? And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. You zip tie in the right spots, he wouldn't be able to do it. He pulled on the crate so hard that I found the zip ties clear across the room, snapped, and then he collapsed the crate and wriggled himself out. So I gave up. I was like, okay, there is no way that I would ever have the peace of mind that this dog is gonna stay in a crate for an entire duration of a cross-country flight. So I did what any rational human would do. I traded in my convertible, I bought an SUV, and we drove cross-country. And, final stats took us about a week, about 8 hours a day in the car, motels at night. I counted, he peed on 13 different states. I do think his favorite were the salt flats in Utah, but I don't know, if he could talk, maybe he would tell me. Round 3, my condo. So when I got to DC, I will tell you, in Northern California, I had lived in about 5 different apartments in 5 years. I was done. I wanted to actually kind of put it roots and buy a condo. So I had one non-negotiable factor when I started looking for condos, and it wasn't price, it wasn't location, it wasn't square footage, it was I wanted a dual cylinder lock. Because that was the only way that I knew that my dog would be safe and stay in my condo. That he would need a key to get out. And even then, I was only about 99% sure. But the thing is, the condo I liked, they had this fire code and this aesthetics code. And they were trying to kind of find a way to please me, but also please that. So we literally were in the negotiations where we had doorknob viewings, where they would hold up doorknobs, and I'd be like, nope, he can get out of that one. Nope, he can get out of that one. Nope, he can get out of that one. I don't know if they believed me, but it was true. I had seen him get out of most of these doorknobs. And finally they relented. They just told me, they're like, look, if it seals the deal, just go to Home Depot, buy whatever doorknob you want, we'll install it, and we'll move on. And I did. I bought a dual cylinder lock, and they put it on. They actually relaxed their fire code and aesthetics code for my dog. And, then I thought I had won, he had a dual cylinder lock. I had peace of mind that my dog was gonna stay in the apartment. Now I'll tell you, I would leave, and he would still do silly little things to show his displeasure, like get into the trash or flip over a bottle of, his bowl of food or pull my sheets off the bed, but nothing too destructive. Except if you count the fact that I actually had to put a lock on my fridge, because once he realized he couldn't open the front door, he started opening my refrigerator door and eating whatever he could inside, including once a full bottle of grated Parmesan cheese, and that was not fun to clean up. But at the end of it, he was staying put, and I was like, okay, I had won. But when most people think they have the game won, I did what they do, and I got overconfident. And I made a mistake. In 2009, I made the biggest mistake of my life. Kind of reeling from an emotional scar, I went to visit a friend with Rocky in the car after having too many drinks. I got pulled over, I got arrested. Now, the cop was nice. He said, I'll let you call somebody to pick up your dog. And he waited there, and all I could see from the police cruiser was Rocky in the back, eyes wide, ears back, and I was crying in the cruiser, definitely more worried about what was going on with him than what was happening to me. And my friend got there, and that's when the car drove off. So I didn't see what happened next, and maybe that was good, because what happened next was my friend could not find Rocky's leash in the car, so he tried to carry him. Rocky was still terrified, and he struggled, and he wriggled himself free, and my friend tried to grab him, but Black Dog ran off, disappeared into the night. When I found out, I was devastated. For years, this dog had been trying to get away, and now he did, and it was all my fault. And I had to do everything I could to get my best friend home. So, I posted everywhere, organized search parties. I set up a blog, ran social media campaigns. I created a digital map of sightings so people knew where to look. I set up food stations with cameras, so maybe to try to catch him in the act somewhere of trying to grab a nibble. I did ridiculous things, like I hired a pet psychic who tried to divine his whereabouts by using my aura. Like, let me just say, I was willing to try everything. I had people who I didn't even know showing up every day to help me poster or search for him. And that part was uplifting, because all these strangers were showing up to try to bring home this lovable dog. And that's the way that I had to think about it, because he was worthy of their love and attention. I was not. And, the days went by, and I felt no closer to bringing him home. And in the darker moments, I was like, well, he's always wanted to kind of escape. Maybe he's happy now. Maybe he's better off. Because in my heart, I wondered, I don't deserve him. 37 days later, I got a call from a woman. She said she saw my dog. Now, I will tell you, my phone number at that time was plastered everywhere, on social media everywhere, posters everywhere, and I would be getting false sightings and prank calls like every day. So I did not believe her, particularly when I asked where she lived, and she said she was 11 miles away. I'm like, that doesn't seem right. But then I started asking what the dog looked like, and what he was doing. I'm like, okay, this sounds like a my dog. Finally, she stops me and she goes, "Sir, I believe it has to be your dog, because I got this number off its collar." She didn't get my number off the internet or, a poster. She literally knew where my dog was. I dropped everything, and I ran to where she was, this quiet cul-de-sac off of Little River Turnpike. And I jumped out of the car, in my mind, still imagining this great chase where I would have to still reel him in. And instead, he was just asleep on a driveway, like 37 days. There he was, just lying there. And I will tell you, I got out, and I still was not sure, like, would he run if I called him? Does he want to be with me? I had no idea. And so I took a tentative step forward, and I called out, "Rocky!" And he picks his head up. He doesn't see me yet. He barks, "Woof!" Call again, "Rocky, come, boy!" Turns, and he sees me. Ears perk up. And he gets up, prances over to me, tail wagging, gives me all the hugs and kisses that I want, lets me put his leash on him, and then jumps in the car just like he did every day on that cross-country trip. Like I was just waiting, like he was just waiting for me to take him to the park. And that kind of reframed a lot of things that were going on in my head. Like I was trying to keep this dog from escaping, but that's not how he saw it. He was just trying to find me, because he wasn't trying to leave. I was the one leaving. Every morning when I went to work, I left. I was the one who changed apartments, changed relationships, changed states. I was the one being driven away in the police cruiser. He was pulling sheets off the bed. He was tipping over his food bowl, not because he wanted to escape, because he didn't want me to leave. We literally were playing the same game. I didn't want him to escape. He didn't want me to leave. And when I understood that, I never wanted to let him go again. He lived for 9 more years after that. At the end, he was 17. He was skinny, tired. He had to go out every few hours. I was carrying him around all the time, and the vets would tell me, yeah, he doesn't have long to go. But he just kept living. And I sometimes wonder, maybe this was our last little game, who was going to escape who first. When he finally passed, I had this empty void in my heart that he had held for 17 years. Shortly thereafter, I started dating Jen, my wife now. She also brought into my life a stepdaughter that I love greatly. And then in 2020, we adopted a dog, Peace, who, if you haven't met her, she's anything but peaceful. But thankfully, like most dogs, she cannot open doors. But there's just so much love in my life that have filled that void. And, you know, for years I spent locking doors trying to keep Rocky from escaping. But at the end, he's the one who opened one for me. So I'd like to give a toast to Rocky, a very, very extraordinary dog. I want to thank you for choosing to spend your life with me and be my companion. And, you know, for letting me escape when you knew I would have never moved on, because I don't think I would have ever moved on from you.